importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate.
President Trump is already rolling back Biden-era mandates and incentives for Americans who want to buy electric vehicles. Not only that, he squashed former President Biden's non-binding goal to have EVs make up half of new cars sold by 2030.
It remains to be seen what this means for Elon Musk, Tesla, and other EV manufacturers. But regardless of the U.S. pivot away from EVs, China is driving the market globally. It now produces 60% of EVs worldwide and 80% of the batteries that power them. China sold nearly 13 million fully electric and hybrid vehicles in 2024. The U.S. lagged far behind, selling only 1.3 million EVs last year. Joining us now to make sense of all this and sharing his insight on the future of EVs in the U.S. is Brendan Jones, an industry expert on electric vehicles and infrastructure and the former president and CEO of Blink Charging. Welcome. Brendan, there is so much to talk about here, and I'm very excited to dig into it. As you know, EVs are kind of my thing. I would love for you to just open by giving us the lay of the land. We've seen a lot of back and forth here about what does this mean, what's Tesla's role in all of this, what's Elon Musk's role in all of this, but just zoom us out a little bit and tell us what's going on.
Absolutely, and I think, Linda, you hit the high points. So we saw a total industry volume in EVs in the U.S. That increased by 7.3%. The outside of EVs, the general industry in the U.S. for automotive increased an anemic 1.7%. So for 2024, you actually saw a significant increase. Now, it remains to be seen if that can be sustained with the changes to incentives that we have seen that are going to play out throughout the remainder of 2025. But Tesla remains one of the largest players in the industry, despite dropping global market share by about 2%, because they were at 50. Now they've dropped to about 48. Now, what's concerning for Tesla is their drop in the U.S. was 6%, compared to the industry increasing by 7.3%. So we have to look at what does that mean. Now, you hear a lot of anecdotal, and you hear some statements about the political side of it. But in reality, if we analyze Tesla, they have an aging fleet. They have to heavily incentivize that fleet. They have to have new model entries because they're a big automotive company right now with big automotive company issues and problems. So, and consequently, because of all the other OEMs investing in EVs, the competition has increased dramatically. So sometimes people worry about Tesla and say, well, it's because of the political side that their volume is down. But if you look at the mechanics of the company, the model line, the increased competition, there are other answers to that. And like any good OEM, Tesla will respond with new models, increased incentives, and new introductions over the years. Now, that doesn't answer the question, though, of what's going to happen in the U.S. with EVs with the removal of incentives. That's a larger question. And we're going to have to look to Q1 sales this year and then probably into Q2 this year to really get a feel for what's happening.
In addition to the incentives, I know it was a major goal of the government to build various charging stations throughout the country, and I know there's been some criticism about the perceived slow pace of that. Can you speak to that issue, where we stand now? Are they indeed having some trouble in getting those stations built?
Sure. So let's talk about it from a high line first. So there was a certain amount of optimism on the time frame it took to really install comprehensive DC fast chargers that had a power expectation between 150 and 350 kilowatts. In reality, having been part of that industry for a long time, it takes a long time to get it done. 18 to 24 months on average is what it takes from when you acquire a piece of property to actually getting the charger in the ground. So some of that slowness is due to that, but other slowness is due to states willing to adopt and roll out the necessary programs. Because as you remember, the money was divided to all 50 states, and it was up to the state to initiate the program. So you have a lot of states to date didn't even initiate the NEVI program, which is one of the true root causes of the slowness.
Brendan, we've been talking about China quite a lot on this program today and in previous weeks. And you heard me lay out some of the big picture stats here for the industry writ large. What's your take on our ability to compete with China today, tomorrow, and over the long term, given the recent backslide in terms of government support for EV incentives?
Sure. So let's go to one of the automotive giants first. So the president and CEO of GM visited China and he looked at their EV lineup across the board and he came back amazed and said, these cars are great. So first we have to erase this old notion that they're lacking in quality. The cars in Europe that are being sold now that are Chinese manufactured are very good EV vehicles and they're at a cheaper price. So that's one thing. From global competition, we have vehicles being made and manufactured at a high level of quality at a lower price. And what does that mean for the US? And indeed, what does that mean for Europe as well? Because Europe is facing the same level of tariffs that we're looking at in the United States against Chinese manufactured product. The other thing we need to be concerned in the US is what does that do to value added technology on a manufacturing level and the spin-offs from there? We're all very much aware that when you introduce battery technology, new EV systems, both from a diagnostic and from an intelligence system within the vehicle that are aimed towards efficiency in fuel consumption, efficiency in the ownership of the vehicle, all of that gets spin-off technology. Battery technology has implications across the US economy, from the industry, distributed energy models, and everything. So the question is, if we fall behind on EVs, do we subsequently fall behind on other spin-off technologies, which will be value added? And we know by fact that value added technologies pay a higher wage. The manufacturing with them creates a better economy in the area where they're manufactured, et cetera. So we really need to look at that in a bipartisan manner to see what the effect is and what we need to do, because we don't want to cede that technology exclusively to China. Because China is going to get to a point where the only vehicles produced in China are electric vehicles. That will effectively shut off that market to the rest of the world unless they can compete with EVs.
Is it? What do we make of the fact that Elon Musk has become this very pivotal government advisor in the second Trump administration? And I know there are plenty of concerns about conflict of interest in government contracts, how that could work out to benefit all of his many companies. So is it striking that the action being taken on this front is to get rid of the incentive to buy more of this product that Elon Musk is responsible for? Does that cut against some of this concern, I suppose?
I'm not going to comment on the political positions of Mr. Musk, but I will say that when you look at this industry, there's one thing that we've always understood: the industry has to become sustainable. It has to be able to stand on its own. It has to be able to compete with ICE vehicles without incentives for the government. So in one view, this is an acceleration of what had to come out anyway. The $7,500 tax credit wasn't going to be around forever, but we also keep in mind with that tax credit, it's only an income tax credit. It's not a $7,500 rebate, which many people interpret it to be, and it's not. So you have to have the requisite income to qualify for the 7,500 anyway. So it's going to have an impact mostly on the lease side of the business, because you could take the whole 7,500 if you were a captive finance company or a bank. So I'm not going to comment on the political side, but I'd say Tesla, we're seeing some signs on the Tesla side of a slowdown, but I think those are more aligned with the general industry position of Tesla. And I think Mr. Musk has always done a brilliant job in this space. He's going to come back, and Tesla's going to find a way to introduce new models to invigorate their lineup and to continue to sell cars.
Brendan, hard to think of someone who has seen more angles of this industry than you have. And so before we let you go, I just would love for you to look into your crystal ball and tell us what you expect us to see this summer, later this year, when it comes to EVs and EV charging.
It's a great question, and there's a multiplicity of answers right now because there's a lot of unknown. And when you look at even analysts and some of the best, there's some contradiction in the data. So definitely EVs are going to slow down a bit in the short term. And you're going to find the manufacturers, the infrastructure companies re-identifying what their footing is in the space and how they can make money and how they can achieve sustainability. But in the long term, we're going to see this industry grow, and all the data suggests that. It may slow down for a period of time, and there's certainly indicators that validate that, but also all the other variables indicate it's going to grow and continue to grow over time. Now, instead of government incentives, we're going to see a lot more infusion in cash from private equity and others. You may see a couple more startups that are publicly traded, but overall, you'll see some consolidation in Europe and the United States, and then you'll see some reemergence of new companies, and you're going to continue to see a drive towards profitability. But yeah, little softness at first, then long-term growth is what my prediction is.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
All right, absolutely. It was great fun.